Most people buy an old house because they fall in love with the soul of an old building. But as a building biology practitioner, I'm looking at the things that can actually impact your family's DNA, like legacy toxins, hidden EMFs, and air exchange rates. And the biggest mistake I see is families looking at aesthetics instead of the facts. We've been conditioned by fixer-upper shows to think everything is just a coat of paint away from being perfect. But some charming features are actually toxic traits in disguise. We aren't just talking about a money pit here. We're actually talking about a health pit. For your kids whose systems are still developing, the home environment is their foundation. And if the house isn't healthy, the people inside, they can't be either. In the next 15 minutes, I'm going to show you how to use building biology to audit an old home. We're going to cover why an old house might actually be healthier than a brand new build, but also the specific tests that standard inspectors almost always miss. Welcome back. I'm Amanda. I'm a building biology practitioner, a certified home inspector, and a healthy home expert. And today we are talking about house hunting, and specifically house hunting for an older home, because I know there's so many of you out there that actually love old homes more than the new ones, but you have to know what to look for in order to make a healthy choice. There's so much more to an old house than just original woodwork or ornate details. In many ways, the building practices of the past created a healthier environment than the tight construction we see in modern homes today. In building biology, we want a house to breathe. Older homes have original more spots for air to escape and filter in many ways, the building and this is called an air exchange. You've probably heard me talk about this in other videos and construction we see. But most older homes have 1 to 5 air exchanges per hour to an old house. A newer home might only have one every 3 hours. Ornate details. This keeps in many ways the building becoming highly concentrated. Of the past create. Generally, older homes rely less on laminate and carpet. Of course, it totally depends on the era of home that you are looking at. But if you've seen any of my posts on carpet toxins, you know that they can ruin indoor air quality. And this was something added in homes much later. So finding original hardwood or natural tile is a major health win. Newer homes use plywood and manufactured wood held together with glues containing formaldehyde, and then we put carpet on top of this. This is so many synthetic materials that it really creates a recipe for disaster when we're looking at indoor air quality. In contrast, old homes often use solid wood planking without plywood instead. In an old house, you're usually looking at solid wood cabinets, doors, and trim rather than medium density fiberboard or vinyl composites. And again, it completely depends on what you're calling an older home. There have been eras in the past where there have been a lot of vinyl products and medium density fiberboard products used, even though it's not a brand new house. So while we have to be mindful of the stains that are used on these older cabinets, doors, and trim, solid wood doesn't contain the same adhesives and cheap additives that are found in the modern look-alike materials used today. Are you a little unsure about where you even should be starting with a healthy house? Like, what are the first steps? After 10 plus years of hands-on experience, I know what those first steps are, and I know the steps to take that won't have you spending lots of money in the beginning, but will get you excited for all of the changes and all the potential that your house has. The truth is, creating a healthy house doesn't have to be really expensive. It doesn't have to be really complicated. You just have to know the exact steps to take. Anybody can check things off a list, and that's exactly what I'm here to help you do. My free ebook is an amazing resource to help you get started on getting toxins out of your house and creating healthier habits, and also planning for the future for some of those bigger changes. The thing you have to remember is that building biology, it isn't just about us. It's actually about the environment outside of our homes and the environment inside of our homes. So when you buy an old house, you're essentially reusing what is already there. This creates less waste, and it aligns with the principle of using natural items that already exist in our world rather than manufacturing new high toxin materials. So as I've kind of been mentioning, not everything in an old house is rainbows because these homes have had several owners. They've been updated in different eras, some of which used materials like lead, asbestos, and early plastics in totally wrong applications. And so, with this in mind, I'm going to share some of the legacy toxins that we see in older homes. It doesn't mean that an older home is not healthy to live in. It just means you have to be aware of what you're looking at. The first one is asbestos. This is a cancer causing material. It's often linked to mesothelioma, and it becomes a risk when it's disturbed and it becomes airborne. You might find this in attic insulation. It's been found in ceiling tiles, popcorn ceilings, and even in drywall. And if you see those 9x9 vinyl floor tiles, there is a very high chance that they contain asbestos. Another place we see a lot of asbestos is in pipe wrapping, especially for homes that have boilers. Another legacy toxin is lead paint. Lead paint was allowed in homes pre-1978. So if your home was built before 1978, you can assume there is lead paint somewhere under all those layers. It's generally fine if it's undisturbed, but once paint begins to chip or peel, the dust can be inhaled. And this is a major concern, especially for children, as it can affect learning and behavior. It is something that a lot of pediatricians will monitor. And so I would take it very seriously if your child's lead levels are elevated in any way and you live in a home that is pre-1978. The good news is that lead can often be encapsulated. It doesn't mean that you have to do an insane remediation, but it is important to take care of it for the health of your family. Now, another spot that we see lead would be in piping. While lead is often found in drain pipes, and it's not a concern to the water you're drinking, you still want to identify it. So you can do a simple scratch test. All you would do is take a key and scratch that pipe. Lead is a dull and gray color and texture. But when you scratch it, it leaves a very shiny indent. So if you have a good inspector, they can help you identify these types of pipes so you can plan for replacement. Again, with a drain pipe, it's not usually a huge concern. However, if you're going to be doing any sort of remediation or you're going to be doing construction in your home where those pipes need to be removed, you need to have someone come in who's a professional who knows how to remove lead safely so that dust does not end up all over your home. Now, formaldehyde would be a toxin that we would probably see in a more modern home. So this could still be an old home, but one that uses adhesives. So any place where adhesives are used, it could be cabinets, it could be countertops or flooring. There's a potential for formaldehyde, and this carcinogen never truly stops off-gassing. And in older materials, the concentration can actually be higher the older the material is. So it's known to affect the respiratory system and it can increase asthma symptoms. Again, it's a carcinogen, so we want to keep it out of our home and we want to keep our bodies safe from this toxin. So this toxin can be overlooked. I would say it's often overlooked, but it is a building biology pillar. Older homes often have knob and tube wiring, or they can just have ungrounded outlets. An ungrounded outlet would be a home that maybe has 2-prong outlets still, or has 3-prong, but they were not wired properly to be grounded. They just kept the main 2 wires. So these create high electrical fields in your living spaces. And since our bodies do most of their important repair work while we sleep, you really want to ensure that bedrooms and rooms that you are relaxing in are electrically quiet. And this is why we need to really pay attention to those electric outlets throughout the house and the wiring. So while radon can be a concern for really any home of any age, we tend to look at older homes first. And this is because new homes being built will have a system put in place to remove the radon, a radon mitigation system, if you will. And these homes typically have been tested. If you live in an area that has potentially high radon, any new home has to have this system. Older homes did not have these. And so you would be retroactively adding a radon mitigation system to an older home. Now, radon enters through the soil. Because older foundations, they might be stone, they might be block, often have more cracks and gaps, they can be more prevalent to radon gas in the home. It's a major cause of lung cancer, especially in children and non-smokers. And I recommend a radon test for every home, new or old. You can get them at Home Depot. The charcoal kits that you hang up are actually quite accurate. You just have to set them up following the instructions very carefully. But every single home should have a radon test done to ensure that any living space is going to be safe, especially if it's in a lower level. So moving on to mold and moisture in the home. In building biology, we look at the house as a living history. Older homes have had more moisture events than new ones. So think about decades of tiny window leaks, or the fact that most of these homes were built without bathroom or kitchen exhaust fans. This means for 50 or 60 years, steam from showers and cooking was absorbed directly into the plaster and wood. Now, we also have to look at the foundation, whether it's poured concrete, block, or stone. These materials are porous, and without modern exterior waterproofing or proper site drainage, they can act like a sponge, pulling moisture from the soil into the basement air. So we aren't just looking for active leaks. We're actually looking for the biological load that decades of high humidity have left behind. So I want to dive into mold inside a home. I see this mistake so often in the Twin Cities when I'm working with clients. A buyer will order a mold test. They get a lab report with some spore counts and they think they have the full picture of what's going on. But an air sample is just a snapshot of one moment in time. Now, if the mold is dormant or trapped behind a baseboard, the air test might come back clean while a colony is just inches away growing. So a true mold inspection is about the why. We would use moisture meters and infrared cameras to find where the water is entering. We look at the grading of your yard and the health of your gutters. The goal of an inspection is to find the source so that the growth can stop rather than just measuring the spores in the air through a test. So you really need to have a test and an inspection done if you are looking for mold. This is the heart of why I do this. I focus on these details because the homes that we live in, where families should be doing their most important work, growing and healing, is important. Children are not just small adults. They have faster respiratory rates, meaning that they breathe in more air and more toxins per pound of body weight than we do as adults. Their neurological and their immune systems are still in a state of rapid development. So when a child's body is busy fighting off the total body burden of lead dust, mold spores, or high electric fields at night, their body has less energy for growth and development. So by creating a low toxin sanctuary, you are removing these environmental stressors and giving their bodies the best possible foundation for long-term health. And I want to be clear, identifying these issues, it's not about being afraid of an old house. It's actually about being empowered. Almost every toxic trait in an old home has a solution. We can mitigate radon with a depressurization system. We can shield electric fields in a bedroom. We can safely manage or remove lead and asbestos. So when you go into a purchase with these facts, you aren't a victim of the house's history. You are the curator of its future. You are moving from the emotional whirlwind of falling in love into a place of total confidence, knowing exactly how to turn this historic beauty into a healthy sanctuary. I also want to add a few things that you could really incorporate into your inspection. So to get that total confidence, you really need to go beyond a standard inspection. First and foremost is a sewer scope. Many old homes have original clay pipes that are susceptible to tree root intrusion or even collapse. And this isn't just a cost issue. A backed up sewer is a major biological health hazard. Another test I want you to get is a radon test. You cannot see or smell this carcinogen, and older foundations are prime entry points. third is a lead and asbestos lab test. So this one you could wait on if your inspector identifies suspect materials like those 9x9 tiles that we talked about or transite siding. Then you would go ahead and get a lab sample. And finally, remember that lead pipe scratch test. If you find gray, dull pipes, use a key to see if they scratch shiny. And if they do, then you need a plan for water filtration or pipe replacement immediately. Now, my biggest piece of advice for you is to be there. When you are purchasing an old home, I want you to attend the entire inspection from start to finish. Don't just show up for the final 15-minute summary. And if your inspector does not allow you to come for the entire inspection, that, my friend, is a red flag. When you walk through the basement and the attic with an inspector like myself, you get to see the biology of the house in action. And this is so important for buying a home. There's so many positives of buying an old house. And if you want to dive deep, I've actually linked the full blog post with all of the scientific studies and resources in the description below, but I also have it at the top of this screen. You can actually make sure that your new old home is the healthiest space possible for you and your family. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you were able to take at least one idea from this week's blog post and apply it to maybe your house hunting or share it with your realtor so they know what to look for too. If you did find this video helpful, definitely give it a like and be sure to subscribe to my channel because I'm here every single week with new tips, new ideas on how to create a house that actually supports your health and your wellness.